That's how we turn UTS from a persistent disadvantage into an operational edge. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Very good. Thank you all very much for your opening statements. And now we'll open up for our question answer portion of today's subcommittee hearing. And I will yield to the ranking member. And ranking member, if you'd like to start with our questions, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I apologize. I'm going to have to step out after I ask these questions. But super interesting topic, and a topic obviously that deeply impacts our military, our intelligence community. I'm a former CIA officer, so I'm trying to imagine what the CIA officers of the future are going to be up against when they try to go undercover abroad, and their movements, their social media profiles, their buying habits, their facial recognition is all scraped and amalgamated. So but I think that this issue is one of those that overlaps with the just normal civilian population. I don't think the average person wants, certainly someone from another country having all this amalgamated data. So I guess the question I have, it could be for a couple of you, is, Mr. Sherman, the data brokers, the people who are paying 12 cents for all the data on, a military soldier or on an Army soldier's information. Do you agree? I mean, I like this idea of basically changing in law that you can't just buy an American, uniform military chunk of data. Does that sound right to you? Is that the way you would propose?
I think that's right, and the point my fellow panelist made about widening the net, I think, is really important, right? If we think about, I had a data broker once say to me, "Oh, well, we can't sell you GPS data points on a military base purely due to internal policy. There's no law that says this, but we can sell you the data on everywhere else they go and everything else they're doing all the time, right?" And so I think to that point, family is one piece. If we only focus on bases, well, what about off-base activity? What about who they're meeting with? What about what they do in off hours, right, and so forth. So, but I completely agree, Senator. I think cracking down on the sale in the first place is the way to go.
Yeah, and Mr. Stokes, I completely agree, and have had legislation for years now on banning Chinese connected vehicles from ever landing on our shores here. You describe them as a traveling cell phone. I just think it's like a traveling surveillance package, so. A couple of months ago now, we had an incident where some officials from Taiwan were traveling in Europe, and a car accident was precipitated right in front of the place where they were meeting. Again, I don't have the classified story on that, but my immediate thought was, how did they know where this person was? How did they, what kind of vehicle was involved in collecting information or precipitating it? So I'm in full support of banning those things. But can you give us a little bit of color, put on the adversary hat. If you had all this data on the U.S. military, locations, individuals, et cetera, illustrate for us with a little color what kind of things you would be doing if you were the adversary.
Thanks for the question, Senator Slotkin. That's a very charged question, but I'll put it out the best way I can. Adversaries are already using this data effectively against our service members and our intelligence community. We have found in our publicly available research at Ridgeline, where we were tracking cohorts of data from pockets at the Pentagon, at Dulles Airport, and military installations, where you look and track the commercial ad tech data at those key points. And you might find, and we did find, Chinese-based cell phones with Chinese language packs who also go to the Chinese embassies following the same cohort of individuals. I say that to imply that it is very likely that this is a common occurrence among intelligence officers from the PRC to disrupt or deny or even potentially cause vehicular accidents in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then lastly, and I'm not sure who's the right person to answer this, but there's this whole competing pressure with the Pentagon where we want to protect data, and they don't have their house in order, according to, I think, all of you. But we also want to make sure that we're, keeping up with the values of tech on AI and not missing out on opportunities to do interesting things. Those feel like countervailing pressures, right? And I know that there have been organizations in the past year who have been interested in data from the Department of Defense and putting that through different AI apps. What's the advice to those of us who oversee the Pentagon on how to think about AI and data and what we should and should not be doing with that data? Anybody? No, don't jump all at once.
It's a great question, Senator. Thank you for it. And probably also a little charged, or certainly difficult to answer holistically. I would offer first, excuse me, we face a similar challenge at CAPE, which is when you want to provide people, including service members, with cellular service, which everyone needs and everyone relies on. People, including national security professionals, have a very low tolerance for any compromises in that user experience. And so one of the original design principles at CAPE is we have to provide uninterrupted, basically transparent user experience to our subscriber base. I think you're describing a similar challenge, which is folks simultaneously want to be mindful of their digital footprint and careful in the way that they manage data, but they also want to leverage all these incredibly powerful technologies that are emerging literally every day all around us. And while I'm not qualified to offer a specific technical solution, I would offer that what we've found over a few years of doing this now is the overarching problem statement can seem daunting and can seem intractable, but when you break it down into individual threats that you're trying to mitigate and be specific about those threats and be specific about those challenges, there's almost always a specific technical solution to be built and deployed that can uphold both your insistence on real user experience and accessibility to tools and also take care of your data privacy.
Great, thank you, and I yield.